We had a dream to travel and see the world as locals and not as tourists. After a lot of hard work, we decided in 2021 to downsize and sell almost everything we owned. We then put our house on the market. We bought a fifth wheel, which we named Serenity, and then we hit the road to see the US. We are working to build the Bald Traveler into a travel resource for geeks and nerds who want to travel and see where their fandoms are based. We encourage you to subscribe and comment to follow along on our journey. Let's get ready to travel baldly together. Welcome, Bald Travelers. As you can see, we're not in our normal location of where we filmed the other semi-retirement videos, which was our dining room at our house in Phoenix, Arizona. We are now on the road. We're actually in Logan, New Mexico. Just as a recap, I am Dave, the Bald Traveler.
I'm Susan,
Mrs. Bald Traveler. And so we want to just give an overview of the last 2 weeks, which would be weeks 20, 21, and now we're into week 22 and actually being on the road. So we started week 20 with being moving the trailer from the storage unit that it was in to our staging campground, which was located in North Phoenix. It was Cave Creek Regional Park. I've got a video up on the channel about it, and there's also a blog post talking about that particular campground. And so we spent 2 weeks going kind of over everything, getting the final stuff loaded into the trailer, making sure that we understood pretty much how everything worked. Everything was tested out, ready to go, and we still had some hiccups at the end.
Well, we had them throughout. Yeah. So even getting the rig to the campsite, somehow we ended up locked into the lot where our trailer was being stored. In that we literally could not get out. Their fence had broken in some way that we actually had to call for help and actually get them to come get us out of their lot. So yeah, it just seems like you got to take it day by day. I assume it's going to get easier. It will get easier as we shake out, little issues and things, but you've got to be able to roll with it on a daily basis. Something happens just about every day, and it can be something little or something big.
Yeah, and that was, when we moved to Cave Creek, that was our first time actually setting up the camper in the light. Any camper between the two of us, we always seem to be in the position of setting it up in the evening at dark. So this was actually the first time we actually set it up in the daylight, and I think that went well. It was also the first time that we were backing into a site with this particular rig, and that was interesting.
It took us probably about 6 to 8 tries. Now the way this works is Dave kind of does our long haul and definitely is our night driver. I do more of what I call my precision driving. So I do the backing up and Dave directs. It's just what works for us.
And it's the same thing that worked for my parents too. My dad would do most of the driving to get us somewhere, and then he would turn it over to my mother, who would back the trailer into the location. And that also seems to work really well for us.
Well, we say well. Yeah. Like I said, it took 8 again, and I'm not mad at it. It took us about 8 tries, and some of that is this rig is longer than I can picture in my mind. It's got a backup camera, but getting your brain around what you're seeing in the camera, plus what you're seeing in your mirrors, plus what your partner's motioning to and yelling, and because we have our windows open, it's just so many inputs, and we're just getting used to it. It's definitely a learning curve, but we're getting better and better.
And I know some people, when they do the backing up, they use either radios, like the little FRS radios, or they use their cell phones and stuff. But right now we're finding just being able to communicate just by saying, okay, I want you to turn left or right, and now we've gotten it down to, I want to turn the back of the trailer left or right, or I want to turn the front of the trailer left or right. So
well, and really it'd be more towards I want bring the end of the trailer towards me or away from me. So it's based off of where he is, and then I can then say, because left and right to him might mean something different than left or right to me. So it's more of a relative type of directions that are working for us, where he'll stand here and he'll be like, I need the front of the trailer closer to me or further away from me. And I know the truck and how it works enough that works. But again, it's a lot of practice too. It just is.
And we're working through it, and it's a growing thing for us. We're right now happy that, we've got a pull-through site.
Yes.
And, I will admit that I am intimidated about backing up the trailer. I've done it a little bit, but it's not necessarily my forte, and it's something that I'm going to have to work on. But, it works for us right now to have Susan back up and, me kind of planning out and kind of doing the more long hauls. But, kind of getting back to our staging time also, once we got the trailer backed in and set up, and everything worked out, we got the water hooked up, we went through trying to figure out how to make the 3 air conditioners that we have in this unit work. And
remember, we're still in Arizona, and it was still hot that first week.
It was still 100 degrees.
It was
and rough. So, we've got a large AC kind of in the middle of the unit, and then we have 2 ACs, one in the bedroom and then one in the back, that are ducted together. So if you run the back one or you run the front one, it'll blow air throughout the entire unit, and we can run 2 ACs at the same time on a 50 amp service. We can't run 3. So, and the way that it's wired is apparently we can't run the middle AC and the front AC at the same time. We can run the middle AC and the back AC at the front time, or we can run the front and the back at the same time. So that's kind of what we have on ACs. And then, it was a lot of kind of loading because we have stuff that we're delivering as we go across the country. So, stuff that we're not keeping long term, but we have to take it with us. So, kind of the logistics. What you're not seeing actually behind the camera is our back couch that is full of stuff that is going to somebody along the way. And, as we travel across the country and see people along the way, that stuff will be offloaded to people, and then we'll get part of our trailer back.
Yeah, it'd be nice to actually have a couch.
Yep. And so that was kind of a little bit back and forth, and learning to live in the trailer, and kind of wrapping up our last couple weeks here in Phoenix, meeting with friends, having our final goodbyes. We had a car to sell and a few other things, and then
we also got to try out we have one of the honey wagons or a poo trailer. I don't even know what people call it, but we got to try that out, rather than moving your rig over, because the park that we were in didn't have sewage at the site, so you had to take it out to a common dump area.
Which is common for like state parks or county parks, or public parks. If you're in a private campground, then that would be a little bit different. And I'm going to apologize if you actually see shaking. It's because we're running our washing machine right now, washing clothes, while we're filming this video.
Which was an adventure as well.
And we'll get to that because that was week 2.
Right.
So so we took the honey wagon out and tested it out, got a feel of it, and kind of got a feel of living in this trailer with a 55-pound greyhound who pretty much has become a couch potato and is actually sleeping behind the camera right now in her little cot.
She was always a couch potato, but she runs with some anxiety when storms come and when things are new, so she needed to settle a bit in her new environment. She's still not a great fan of stairs, so we did invest we invested in a dog ramp, which still not her favorite thing in the world, but at least she can get up and down that without. She had a fall down the steps the first time, so no more of that. But it works a little bit better.
And at the end of week 1, we actually had an offer on our house, and we went under contract, and we were all excited.
So excited.
But that fell through. Not on any part of us or our house, but the buyer didn't do his research and didn't realize our house was in the school district that his son has to go to per his divorce decree.
It wasn't in the school district.
It was not.
It was 1.5 miles too far out of the district.
So we're still, as of the recording of this, it went back on the market, and we're still trying to sell the house. If you know anybody, hopefully by the time you see this, our house is sold, because this will be going up sometime in November currently. But
it'll be sold by then.
It'll be sold. As we're kind of moving forward, into that second week, we kind of wrapped up and got the last of the stuff out of the house. We made one final trip, or actually I made 2 trips in the car, because we spent we spent a couple days at the house kind of just doing the final stuff. So I took the car up, dumped off a couple loads, and then we took one final trip in the truck and brought the rest of the stuff up and put it where it needed to go. And a bunch of that stuff was stuff that we had to give away, so we were kind of holding off on that. But we spent most of that second week, which the weather for Phoenix had broken, and we were in the 80s and 90s and not hundreds.
It was nice.
So we, it was easier to run with ACs, and we had some kind of growing pains with the internet, where it was kind of off and on in the location we were at, even though AT&T said that they had decent signal, and Verizon had decent signal. It seemed to be dropping out a lot for Susan as she continued to work.
But we did persevere, and we would switch between the 2 SIM cards. I did even use Dave's telephone as a hotspot at one point when I got desperate, just because sometimes when you're doing switches or sometimes rebooting the modem would help. And those reboots take a couple of minutes, and if I'm in the middle of a call that I had just dropped out of because I lost internet, I do think I used his cell phone once or twice to immediately try to hook back into a call. But luckily, the way my job works, they're understanding, and it's not like I'm on customer calls exactly. So it's all internal team-like calls. So if I'm down for a minute, they just, they keep going and wait for Susan to come back, and then they ask, what I've been doing, did I break something? So it's not a big deal so far.
And then, near the end of the week, we kind of started organizing everything and trying to figure out where it was going to go when we planned for, moving out. We also put kind of the last of our geeky stuff up. We've got a Nimbus 2000 broom. We've got the Dumbledore's Army wand set, and we've also got lightsabers from Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland that we are displaying.
So we'll give a tour of that later, either later in this film or in a one that's coming down the road, once we again kind of want to do a full showing of the house once we get everything settled. So like I said, we've got a whole couch of things to get rid of.
So I mean, we're going to have a mixed video of what our house was. So I filmed that a couple weeks ago as we were getting ready to move out, kind of an overview of where we were, and then we'll give kind of a crib tour, what our mobile crib is, and it'll be all combined together, and it'll come out probably shortly after this one, as we'll be, I'll be able to film the last of it and then get everything edited up and get sent out. So during the second week, we decided to actually wash some laundry in the trailer to make sure that was working. That was kind of like the last thing we had to...
It was one of the last major appliances that we hadn't really tried, hadn't even turned on.
So I had put a load in and realized that the water wasn't running. Like most washer dryers, we have a stackable unit. We have a washer on the bottom and we have a dryer on the top. Some RV systems are an all-in-one thing. So the washer and the dryer are all one unit. So you have to wash it, and then it has to do some stuff, and then it has to dry it. And I've heard that it's a pain, and we kind of wanted separate units so that we could wash and dry at the same time.
Right.
And so we went to try that because we're like, okay, we need to know what's going on with this. And we ended up figuring out that the water wasn't turned on somewhere. And so I'm like, well, there's got to be a shut off somewhere. And I assumed that, when the dealer put the washer and dryer in for us, that they tested it and made sure it worked. And run it, and I don't believe that they did it at this point. They just put it in and assumed it worked. So I actually went through the entire underneath basement, behind the false wall in our basement, looking for, tracing the water line back, looking for a shutoff valve that might be shut off, because our ice maker has like 2 or 3 shutoff valves on it that we have turned off because they're prone to leaking. And so I was looking for that and didn't find anything. And so what we came to realize was that the washer was actually turned off at the actual washer connection. Like most residential, it has, you know, on off for hot and cold water. That especially in a trailer, you shouldn't be running. You just shouldn't have on, because going down the road, you know, who knows what could happen with the vibrations and stuff, and you don't want like a charged water line kind of spilling out into your unit. But to get to them, because it was unlike a lot of trailers where it's on the side and you could just reach around, ours was behind everything against the front cap of the, you know, so it's behind the washer, behind the dryer, kind of like it was in your house. So we had to take the dryer, which was on top, off, and I was hoping I could just move it out enough to turn it, but we actually had to take it all the way out and put it on our bed, so
and this is, you know, an RV.
Yep.
So it's really tight. And actually, we had to take the door off the cabinet. So it's always, you know, you think it's it'll be easy. Okay, we'll just take the dryer off. It's no big deal. So you start taking that off, and you go to pull it out, and it will not come out. All right, well, we're just going to take the door off. So we took the door off. It's always one thing after another, and then when you're taking it out, you got to be careful, because either somebody's got to hold the dryer, or you've got to completely disconnect it, unplug it, plus take the dryer vent off, and that took a screwdriver.
Yep.
And I didn't have the screwdriver, so then I'm scrambling and just.
Yep. But we got it off. We got the water turned on, and then we put a load through, just make sure everything worked with the dryer still on the bed, and then once that was working, we put the dryer back in and left the water turned on. But what we did do was, since we were still close by, I went to a Home Depot and I got PEX cutters and fittings and stuff, and we put shutoff valves in our under basement that leads up, so I can shut the water off at a convenient place by just opening up the door in our under basement, which is conditioned. And I can just turn it off, and then when we want to use it, I turn it back on.
Right. That way we don't have to turn off our whole water to turn off the water if something's going on with the washer.
And then when we're going down the road, we can just turn the water off.
Right.
And if there's any water in the lines and something happens, it's only going to be like 5 feet of water hose, and it's only 3/8 or ½ inch water hose. So it's not going to be a lot of water that we have to sop up.
Right.
So we did that, and so the washer dryer is working, and as you can probably see in our vibrations, it's actually working right now. And then kind of on Saturday, we had our next major issue. We were getting ready to leave and head to head out into New Mexico on our drive across country. It was going to be a long day for us, about 5.5 hours to get to Gallup, New Mexico, or the general area. And as we were going to hook up the trailer, the hydraulic jacks weren't working.
Right. And
we had to spend a lot of time troubleshooting that. We're actually going to do a video on the hydraulic jacks. It turns out that the issue was that one of the maintenance things I was intending to do while we were staging was to make sure all of our house batteries, we have four 6-volt deep cycle batteries that are in parallel to give us 12 volts, and then we got 2 banks of 12 volts that we run, or it's in series to give us 12 volts, and then we run the 2 sets of 2 in parallel to give us more amperage and more wattage, so that we can run longer without having to charge up. And we have solar panels and everything, but they're flooded, which means that you have to keep distilled water in them, and I forgot to check and see what the levels were. So we didn't have enough amperage to run the hydraulic jacks long, and so what would happen is it would flip a breaker. And so we spent probably about 20 minutes kind of troubleshooting this or that. Was the hydraulic fluid too low, or what was going on? And finally we came across, I think it was one of the owners groups. I think it was the Montana owners group. Somebody was mentioned clicking it, there was a shut off. And so once we did that, it would raise it for a while and then shut off, and we did it again, and we finally got it up enough that we could hook in. And we thought we were okay. We thought, okay, whatever, a charge or whatever, when we're going down the road, it'll charge.
But at this point, we really hadn't zeroed in on the batteries.
We didn't know that the batteries needed water.
We just knew that the switch, that it needed to be reset.
Yep.
We kept on flipping the switch, and we've already been told right now we have a 50 amp switch that it breaks, it flips. And we've already been told that in the 2021 models, they've upped it to an 80 amp. So we've already have plans to get that ordered. We have to do some rewiring, but That's not the end of the story. This was just like
Yeah.
symptom of symptoms of symptoms.
So yeah, I mean, so as we continue on with that, you know, we went down the road. We thought we had everything fixed. We dumped all of our gray and black tanks at the park and went down the road. And we went a couple hours and we hit our first major traffic leaving Phoenix on a Saturday on I-17. It's slow.
It's slow.
Yeah.
Honestly, it wasn't like there was. It could have been a lot worse. It was pretty typical weekend traffic trying to get out of Phoenix going towards Flagstaff. There's just not a lot of ways out of the valley, and they get congested.
So we went through that. We stopped at truck stop along the way. We ate our lunch there. We got a bag of ice to put into our black tank to kind of help clean the sensors off and stuff. And we're going to do that again when we leave this park. We're going to put some more ice in, trying to clean up the sensors.
We put ice in and then a couple of the pods of the cleaner. And the idea is that as you're going down the road, that kind of sloshes around and it helps clean up your tank. And honestly, I think I could tell a difference between, you know, what it was smelling before. Now, it already helped that we had dumped it, but still, I think it was a better smell once we were, you know, done.
So, you know, we did probably about a 6.5 hour trip that day with the extra traffic that we had, and we ended up at the Walmart in Gallup, New Mexico. And we had planned on either staying at a library just inside the Arizona border, or the Walmart at Gallup, New Mexico, or we were kind of hoping to stay at a casino a little bit further along. But all the reports I had of the casino, like even a week before, was that they were still closed and only open to locals.
Right.
So they weren't taking any overnight guests in their parking lot. So we opted to go as far as the Walmart. We were actually hoping to get into a Cracker Barrel that was located close by, but this particular Cracker Barrel probably could accommodate maybe a 25-foot trailer.
Maybe a 25, because you had to leave. You had to stay hooked up.
Yep.
Maybe a 25.
And so we had a little bit of fun getting out. Because we tried it. You know,
of course you tried.
But, you know, we had a little bit of fun trying to get back out, and then we went to the Walmart, and it took us a little bit, but we were finally able to get parked at the Walmart in the location that we needed to be so that we could put our bed out. And so we needed to have the driver's side against a far, you know, not against open traffic or anything, because we wanted to be able to push our bed out so that we could sleep along with our dog at the foot of our bed. Because while we can sleep with the slide closed, we have a bunch of stuff like computer monitors and stuff like that on there that we wanted to set aside, and then we also wanted to make our dog feel as comfortable as possible. So that let us push it out. We were kind of surprised at the number of truckers there, but, you know, thinking about, you know, truck stops now charging, you know, making more and more of their spots reserved and rest areas being closed because of COVID and not just open, there's not a lot of places for truckers to stop. So, you know, they're going into more of the traditional places where RVers would kind of overnight camp, which was like Home Depot or Walmart and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I was really surprised by that. I knew we would likely have a trucker or two, but it was a lot of truckers there. But again, if you're paying attention going down the road, so many of the truck stops are either closed, probably because they don't have the staffing to upkeep them right now or whatever, or, you know, they're just everywhere. They're pulled over on the side of the road, and yeah, we saw where you could rent places at the truck stops and have paid reserved parking, and so but I mean, don't know. I can see where truckers are probably struggling right now.
You know, because if you pay to have a reserved spot, that cuts into your profit.
I know.
And, you know, we're all trying to make a living, and so, you know, if you can avoid it. You know, and I know that, you know, I've heard stories about truckers or the police, you know, keeping truckers from stopping on ramps and off ramps and stuff and parking there, which is another place that I know I've seen truckers park, and not, you know, not so much as I have in the past.
Right.
And then kind of from there, you know, we went and we got dinner, and we also stopped really quick and got a rope, because we've got a set of steps that are really nice. They're really sturdy, but they stick out pretty far from the edge of the rig, and we didn't want them hit by a truck trying to pull in or out. So
right, when you open your door, your the steps are upright, and you have to pull them down, and then they go out. So they go out, what, 3, 4, 5 feet?
Probably about 4 feet.
And you know, when you're in a busy parking lot and it's dark and these are black stairs, I was really stressing over it. That I was convinced we were going to have to figure out a way to pull those up and pull the door closed behind us so that we could just sleep in it without those down.
So we got a piece of rope, and I got a carabiner, and we just looped it around the bottom step and pulled them up, and then in the morning we pushed them down, and that worked really well for us.
Right.
And you know, we went and had dinner. One thing we did have that we knew, you know, we had some water in our freshwater tank. And we did that so that we could use the toilet and stuff at the Walmart, go to the bathroom, wash our hands, stuff like that. But to use that, you needed a water pump. And I had turned the water pump on, not realizing. And when our slides are in, you know, it's really hard to see where our sink is in the kitchen island. And going down the road, the faucet had opened up, so all of a sudden water was coming out of the sink.
I had no idea.
Out of the faucet. And we have covers over the sink, so it wasn't going down into the sink. It was kind of going on the sink, and it ended up running off the island and got one of our slide carpets wet that we had to end up drying out.
There's always something. Always something.
And then when we got up in the morning, the plan was we were going to make lunch. We were going to make sandwiches for lunch, and then for breakfast we were just going to run into McDonald's and get some breakfast food and go. And, you know, I was going to walk our dog and then go get breakfast while you made lunch, and then you called me and was like, the refrigerator is off. And one of the consequences of what we did Saturday to get hooked up was flipping that breaker turned our inverter off for the refrigerator, and we didn't realize that. So we ran all the way up and overnight in with a refrigerator, and it got up to 54 degrees. So like
in
all of our so all of our meat and stuff, we were like gone. Our eggs, because they were liquid eggs, you know, we ended up tossing. So that meant we didn't have anything for lunch. And we were like, okay, we'll just stop along the way somewhere and get food. And I figured out what it was, doing some troubleshooting again. You kind of, you know, okay, did this fix it? Did this fix it? Kind of going through what I'd done the day before to get everything working to make sure, we didn't trip anything. And then the final thing I did was turn the inverter for the refrigerator on. And I actually pushed the button, and that triggered it. But, you know, and that worked fine coming to our next stop here where we are in Logan, New Mexico. When we got here, the refrigerator was cold. It was fine. The solar, like I said, we got the solar panels up on the roof. We also have the generator. We'll run it, and then also when we're towing, we're actually pulling from our alternator on the truck through the actual wiring into the trailer for lights and brake lights and stuff, and the electronic brakes also has a power, 12-volt power thing there that's actually charging the batteries, which will then let the inverter run. So that's how we run our refrigerator while we're going down the road. So we got over that. We figured that out. I think there's still an inverter. We should have one more inverter for the rest of the outlets here, and I think that's behind the false wall in our basement. And I've just got to get to a place where I can take all the stuff out of the basement to open up the false wall, figure out where it is, and reset it. I'm not as worried about that. We just got one annoyance in that we have a temperature alert. It's a Wagon system. I'll put a link for it down below in the description. But it tells me what the temperature, humidity is, and whether or not the RV has power. And so when we're going down the road and the inverter for the electricity isn't running for the outlets, it's telling me that we don't have power. What I'm expecting it to tell me is, hey, the temperature is above 85 degrees. And we have that because we want to make sure that our dog is safe if we were to leave her in here with us not being here. Right. So, we're going down. The first day, that Saturday, to get out in New Mexico was about a 5.5 hour, 6 hour trip, which was supposed to be one of our long trips. And then the next day was supposed to be 6.5 hours.
Right. We knew it was going to be long.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be long.
This.
Yep. We figured, okay, we don't have lunch, so we'll stop like halfway through, just on the other side of Albuquerque, and get some lunch somewhere. Hopefully we'll find a McDonald's at a truck stop or something. But, we're driving down the road, and as we're probably about 60 miles from Albuquerque, we see, a sign on the signboard saying, accident mile marker 189. I knew that was past Albuquerque, And we still had an hour to go to Albuquerque and probably an hour to go to mile marker 189 past Albuquerque. I'm like, that's 2 hours. They'll have this thing cleaned up by then. So we're trucking down the road, about 2 hours in, probably about 45 minutes out of Albuquerque. We hit the 2 hour limit, which is when we want to switch drivers. We happen to find a rest area. So we pulled into the rest area. We let our dog Nell out for a walk. She went for a walk, and did her business. And we kind of took a quick rest, and then we switched drivers. And then so Susan drove through Albuquerque, and we got to about mile marker 175 or so.
I think so.
And traffic just stopped. And it took us almost 2 hours to go just under 10 miles.
It was rough because it was all uphill. It was uphill coming out of Albuquerque. We were making, I don't know, like 4 miles per hour on a good average. It was terrible. It could have been worse. I mean, we had used the restroom, thank goodness. We had something to drink. But yeah, it was definitely not fun, and it it turned out it was a pretty bad accident. It was really bad.
So we hit that about 11:45, and our plan was between 12 and 1 to stop and get food somewhere. So we hit that about 11:45. We got through it at almost 2 o'clock. And then shortly, like 2 exits past that, we found a truck stop with a Subway. So we stopped. We had a little bit of an issue there, and we tried to pull in, and they had some pull-through lanes that weren't reserved. So
it's like my first, it's like an RV driving achievement, like in a video game. It's great. And you're going to pull in, and they do have pull-throughs, but you had to go around and pull behind, and there was another row of trucks behind it. So there was, it's not like I could pull as super wide as I wanted and take my time. And, I actually had to kind of... Well, I didn't swing it wide enough the first time. And I got, the truck, you got about a third of the way through before I knew that the trailer wasn't coming in at an angle that was going to be able to straighten up. And I look up and I meet eyes with the trucker, and I got my first trucker eye roll. So somebody walking back to his truck, and he looks at us and looks at what we're doing and rolls his eyes, and he starts walking away and is like, come on. And so he keeps eye contact with me the whole time, and tells me how exactly to back up to make sure I get out of there safely. So that was super nice. And then he was like, go really wide. I was like, I was really appreciative because I know it just was a lot tighter in there than I thought. And so the next time we swung super wide as we could, and it was fine. It was fine.
And so we went in, went to the restroom, took Nell for another walk, let her do her business, and then we got Subway, and we were like, okay, it's like 2 o'clock, almost 2:30 at this point, so we're like, let's get lunch and dinner.
That's what footlongs are for.
And so we switched drivers, and I took over driving again. Susan ate because we wanted to get to the campground. We were tired.
Don't want to put up in dark.
We didn't want to put up in dark, and right now, if we looked at the GPS, it said we were going to get there about 5:15. And so in New Mexico, where we are right now, it gets dark according to the thing at like 30. 6:30, something like that. Yeah. So we wanted to make sure we got there with plenty of time. So we took off. We, just in case there was anything else. And so, Susan ate her lunch, and then a little while later, I ate my lunch. We pulled into, it was a little bit rough roads coming in, but we pulled into the RV site, found our spot, got in and everything, and we had trouble again with the hydraulics. And so I had to go into manual mode, and I got it to, I was manually able to level the system. It would
start and then go, and then pop.
Yep.
And it would pop that switch again, and you start and go, and it would go, and then go, and you have to pop.
Yep. And one of the things with auto level is that it will time out after like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And so we were timing out because it couldn't auto level because it would go for so long and then pop because it didn't have the amperage. So we got that, and then we went to put the slides out. We're like, well, maybe it's just something with the auto level part. We went to put the slides out, and we had to get 2 of the slides out really to be functional.
Right.
So we got 2 slides out by resetting everything, and then we started doing all kinds of troubleshooting. And
because at that point,
yeah.
you know it's
Yeah.
either the pump or something downstream of that.
Yep.
You know, because if it's affecting both our hydraulic, the landing gear and the slides, it's the pump
Yep.
or the motor or the, you know, and then
Yep.
you start going backwards.
And, you know, we thought, well, maybe we just keep on tripping this breaker because we're putting too much power through it. But at one of the videos, I think you or I watched, one of us was like, make sure you actually have the voltage and the amperage, you know, check your batteries. So I went out and checked our batteries and found that while they were still wet, there was no water visible.
Nope.
And Logan, New Mexico is not close to anything. You know, they've got like 2 convenience stores. One closes at 8 o'clock and one is open all night. They've got a grocery store that's open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. They've got a Car Quest that's open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that's, you know, and they got a Subway, and that's pretty much it. Some mom and pop things saying, you know, we're out here in the country. You know, there's no
Walmart.
There's no Walmart. There's no Home Depot. There's nothing like that. You know, and I checked online, and the Car Quest didn't have any 6-volt batteries. And I actually asked the guy because I stopped in to get something else. And I asked the guy, and he's like, yep, nope, don't have any 6-volt batteries. So what I was able to do last night was go into the convenience store that was open 24/7 and get
Distilled water.
distilled water. So I started with 2 gallons of distilled water, thinking that would be more than enough. And so
4 batteries.
yeah, 4 batteries. So it was just under a gallon per battery. So I went through 3 gallons just filling up the batteries, and then this morning I topped them up with a little bit out of that 4th gallon. So I actually went back and bought another 2 gallons after I'd went through the first 2 gallons and only had completed 2 batteries, so that the water was above the cells. So the good point is that the cells were still wet. They weren't dry, which means we probably didn't damage them, but we will be looking at replacing them here in the near future.
We'll at least get them tested out and see how they test. But right now, I think your meter is showing that they're okay.
Yep.
Better than they were for sure.
So, you know, we filled that up, and then this morning I tested out the other 2 slides, the one we're in right now with the love seat, and then the one that has our TV and fireplace, and they opened up fine after I let the batteries charge overnight and kind of recycle, and then top them off this morning with a little bit more water.
So good to note, like we're plugged in to 30 amp service. Doesn't matter for this hydraulic pump. It wants that battery.
Yep. And I think the reason for that is because, you know, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you don't have a generator because the generator is not standard, that's how you hook up to, you know, that's how you move these things around is with the battery. So they just make it so it always runs off the battery.
Right.
And so that kind of leads us up to now. We're here to Wednesday, and then we move to Amarillo next. So our next video will probably be Amarillo, Oklahoma City, and then we'll be into Arkansas. So we'll do another weekly update next week on Monday, and then that video will go live sometime in November on Wednesday.
Sounds good.
So thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
We're going to go and get some dessert from after dinner, maybe turn on our electric fireplace and watch the fire crackle for a little bit.
Because even here the fires are a little questionable.
So, you know, remember, travel boldly, my friends. Subscribe, comment, like, all that fun stuff, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.